So let's take a look at the complete first appearance of Man-Bat over 2 issues. So welcome to Josiah is Right, and this is a video that's combining 2 of my previous videos where I look at the previous 2 issues that Man-Bat first appeared in, which are issues of Batman. Man-Bat first appeared in Detective Comics 400, and the completion of the story actually came 2 issues later in 402. He even very briefly got his own series in the mid-70s, but similar to his origin, it was only 2 issues long. I tend to cover Marvel a lot more than DC on this channel, but I'm trying to rectify that situation, and this is part of that rectification? Remaining Batman focused, but specifically moving into comic books, today we'll look at Detective Comics number 400. First, issue 400. Wow, this comic book came out in 1970 and they were already at issue 400? Keep in mind, at this point in time, Marvel wasn't even a decade old. Yes, the company existed under various other names, but the Marvel that changed comics didn't. DC started well before Marvel could redefine the superhero comics that Batman and Superman invented. As to the comic itself, although it's written by Frank Robbins, this comic book comes at the peak of the Denny O'Neil Adams era. Adams did illustrate this issue, but as I said, O'Neil didn't write it, as Frank Robbins did. The cover also features Batman's sidekicks, who don't actually show up in this story. They fill the B story in the back pages we won't focus on here. The story begins with a crazy bat guy named Langstrom. He's working on some really batty stuff.
Not funny.
Better than Batman stuff. It involves bat gland extract, which sounds super gross. The Blackout Gang breaks into, honestly, I'm not sure, somewhere. But the where is less relevant than the why, which I also don't know. But what really matters here is the technology they're using to out-Batman Batman. You with me there?
We're with you.
The tech includes hearing and seeing in the dark. Things the real Batman can't do, yet. Meanwhile, the Bat Guy can also see in the dark. Based on my vast knowledge of science, I know that bats can't see in the dark. They basically scream and listen for a sound to bounce back at them, telling them what's in front of them. Like me, it's a camera. And I guess you.
Not us.
As a kid in Western Pennsylvania, our summer evenings were spent catching fireflies and throwing rocks at bats.
Lightning bugs.
Attempting to hit one and knowing we probably never would because of their radar vision thing. It kind of sounds mean-spirited now when I say it out loud, but it wasn't meant to be. There's kids throwing rocks at the sky, trying to hit a bat. Anyway, that bat-like radar vision makes him Daredevil?
No Marvel. No Marvel.
No Marvel. This is a DC review. I apologize to myself. At the same time, Batman, the regular Batman, the Bruce Wayne one, is working on artificial ears, which he tests on poor Alfred. There's a nice dynamic to the story as you have Man-Bat, Batman, and the Blackout Gang all working to gain or utilizing the same bat-like abilities. On that note, Langstrom's gland extract is not just giving him bat-like abilities, but making him bat-like. The Man-Bat goes into hiding. Batman again confronts the Blackout Gang. At this point, you and I are both waiting on Man-Bat versus Batman. The creators know that and play with that, teasing the fight you really want to see. Despite his improving technology and ability to see in the dark, Batman listens for the heartbeats of the gang members. However, the gang seems to be one step ahead of Batman, using a cacophony of bouncing ping pong balls to overwhelm Batman's hearing. Batman appears to be defeated when a very unlikely ally shows up. No, not Robin or Batgirl as the cover might promise. Also, I said unexpected. Those 2 aren't just expected, but required to help Batman when he's in need. The unexpected ally is none other than the Man-Bat. One of the gang members is about to kill the Man-Bat, but Batman gathers himself just in time to save his fellow Bat. Man-Bat reveals that he was inspired by Batman, in a very Batman-like way, vanishes. The final panel is an absolutely glorious tease. The comic challenges your expectations about the guy on the cover presented as a new bad guy. The same guy who saved Batman in this very comic. Is he friend or foe? Come back next month as we take a look at Detective Comics number 402, the second appearance of Man-Bat, to answer that question. news. You don't have to wait a month. Unless you want to, but if not, just keep watching the video. The Man-Bat returns as we take a look at Detective Comics number 402. First, as it is by default, the cover very much feels like a horror comic book. In this comic, especially the ending, really feels like a throwback to EC Comics in the 1950s. Vault of Horror, Eat Your Heart Out, which I assume happened in one of those comics. As with the first appearance of Man-Bat, this comic comes from Frank Robbins and Neil Adams, at the height of the Denny O'Neil Neil Adams creative team-up. The story opens, some bad guys are trying to break in. Why? It doesn't really matter to the story. What we do know is, Man-Bat is lurking in the rafters, and he needs a mysterious chemical in the vault to reverse his Man-Batness. Just as Man-Bat is about to strike, Batman leaps into action, attacking the safe-cracking crew. It is a really well-executed moment. Man-Bat then joins the fray, aiding his idol, Batman. His words, not mine. After a bit of an explanation, Man-Bat reveals why he's here, and that he brought money to cover the cost of the stolen chemical. However, Batman has an extremely strict moral code and won't allow it. This moral code is really essential to the O'Neil-Adams run, and frankly, it still defines Batman to this day. Man-Bat feels pushed in a corner, and without another option, knocks Batman out, to show he's not a bad guy, at least not yet. He checks on Batman to make sure he's okay. The desperate Man-Bat flees. He must reverse the process before fully becoming a Man-Bat. It seems once he devolves enough, there would just be no turning back. As Batman investigates, he meets Kirk Langstrom's, aka Man-Bat's, fiance. He then realizes Man-Bat actually created a ruse about being in Chicago to buy himself more time. She is, of course, desperate to find her love. Batman brings her to Man-Bat. Without mentioning it before, she sees him as a monster, diving out a window. Man-Bat is upset that Batman brought his lady into this. The Chicago lie, it was all set up to protect her from the horrible truth. He decides that Batman is officially his enemy, and Man-Bat can officially be added to the best rogues gallery in comics. Batman knows the specific chemical that Man-Bat needs and decides he will cure his wayward groupie. Man-Bat now soars on bat-like wings. The tragic transformation is now complete. There's no turning back, cementing him evermore as a bad guy, and frankly among the most wonderfully poetic of Batman's adversaries. Instinctively looking for a place to hide away, Batman returns and turns on the lights, which blinds Man-Bat. A battle ensues after Batman briefly tries to reason with Man-Bat. Man-Bat is now more bat than man. The ending has a very powerful resonance, as Batman and the readers must decide, is it better to let him live as a bat or to live as a man in a vegetative state? That concludes the first appearance in 2 issues of the Man-Bat, and this story was also told in perhaps the greatest of many great episodes in Batman the Animated Series, so be sure to check that out. Thanks for watching. Throughout the years, he's popped up here and there, sometimes even as a good guy, and he's really essentially a bat version of the Spider-Man character, the Lizard, and that's not at all an insult. It's a great character. They're both great characters.